Hey guys, welcome back to my channel today. Today is actually going to be a video that I got by request from one of you guys, and that is if I would do a video ranking my Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes. So we're going to be doing that today. I do have 8 palettes to rank today, which I'm super excited about. I definitely have a little bit of an order, although all of them are all favorites, of course, because they're still in my collection. I haven't decluttered them or anything, and I do use them fairly consistently as well. So let's get right on into this video because this is my first ranking video, so I hope you like it. Alright guys, so let's get right on into this ranking. Like I said, I have 8 palettes sitting right in front of me here. I do have 3 mini palettes that she has. I have one of her midi size, which is essentially like her medium size palette. Then I have 4 of her larger palettes. I don't have a 28 pan palette from her, unfortunately, so that is something that won't be in this video. But if you do have a recommendation for one of her 28 pan palettes, I'm starting to get more interested in picking it up because they do look really beautiful, but they are so expensive. So I do want to make sure I pick the right one out. So anyways, do leave me a recommendation if you have one in the comments. But let's get started. The first palette that I think is ranked number 8 or in last place is actually this one. This is the Natasha Denona Mini Gold palette. Now, I do have a rationale for this one, of course. This is my second newest mini to the collection, and this is one that I've talked about in the past as one of them that when I do use it, it's amazing, but it's also a color story that challenges me just a little bit. And I think it's because of the overall kind of darkness of the shades. I'm much more used to like lighter shades on a regular basis. This one challenges me for sure with that dark kind of purple color. And then the bluey green and the green are definitely not colors I wear a ton, but they are really beautiful when I do decide to wear them. So this is just a little bit out of my comfort zone with regards to style, like the colors I wear on my eyes typically. That doesn't mean, of course, that it's a bad palette or anything. It definitely does perform well, which is why when I'm doing this ranking video, it's basically like little differences between them that are going to make or break the order of the palettes. So nothing too crazy where like this is a crap palette and this one's good. All of these are really good. All of these are really consistent. It's just that this is one that I find I don't pick up a ton because I'm a little bit nervous to put a look together that I think would look bad, which is really just me being a little nervous to try some new things, new styles. So this is why this one is in last place, but I'm really glad that I do have it in my collection because when I do want to try something, it's there and the consistency and quality is great. In 7th place, we have this one. This is Natasha Denona's Mini Nude palette. This is also one that I think is a fantastic overall palette. For the price point, this is one that is a great kind of starter palette if you are wanting a Natasha Denona product, but in your mind, paying for a large, big palette is just out of the question. This, I think, is a really good introductory palette. As you can see, the Mini Nude has some gorgeous everyday nude colors. Now you may think, well, isn't that kind of reddy brown at the end going to be challenging if it's a dark color, just like what we were talking about with the other palette? And actually, I'm actually used to brown shades and darker brown shades all the time. So I like to darken up the kind of corner of my eye looks from time to time with a shade like this. This isn't a shade that I don't wear a ton or anything. It's beautiful. So that's why this one's a little bit different, but the shimmers in this is fantastic. These two here are super stunning. We have one that has more of like a greeny kind of undertone, which is this one. So beautiful. And then this one over here is more of a copper. So it's really, really nice for every day. I do think with my brown eyes, it amplifies my brown eyes. I'm sure it works for other colors too, but I wear, obviously, my brown eyes. I don't wear them, I guess I have them. But this is a palette that makes my brown eyes look beautiful. So that is why I really, really love this one. This was the first mini that I actually put in my collection by her because not all of them are the best quality. The Mini Gold was great, and this one is also really, really nice, but I would say compared to the big palettes, this is still not as good, if that makes sense. Again, we're talking very slight differences, but I do think that the matte formulas in the larger palettes are just a little bit more creamy and a little bit easier to work with. Not to say this one isn't, but this is a good introductory palette basically for those of you that are just wanting to start out with her line and are just going to work your way up to a bigger palette in the future. Palette number 6 is actually my last mini in my collection, so this out of all my minis I like the best. This is the mini retro palette from Natasha Denona. Between the three that I've just mentioned, this has got a really beautiful spring pink packaging, which I really, really love. She did do color packaging for mini gold, of course, with that green color, but I just seem to really gravitate towards this kind of palette. The shades are really easy. You can see looks really quick too. So this one I would say is definitely my favorite just because of the fact that it's more approachable to me since these are colors that I like and I wear regularly. So I would say this blue, kind of like the blue right here, is one that I actually think is a little bit more approachable than the blues in mini gold, for instance. With ranking palettes that are in your collection, essentially you're just doing like very nitpicky things, right? Because all of these have a place, like they're obviously all palettes worth keeping, which is why I've kept them all. But I just really love this color story. I mean, the shimmers work beautifully together. That green matte is gorgeous. The pink is really easy. So this is a beautiful palette as well to pick up if you're interested in this type of color story. It's one of her fantastic minis in my opinion. These three are great. Mini Lila I would stay away from because that is one that I just didn't feel like it was good, and Mini Sunset I also didn't like. So those I would definitely skip on to get one of these three instead. The next palette is palette number 5. Now this is the only midi palette or middle-sized palette that I have from Natasha at this point. I did used to have Metropolis, and even though Metropolis was a good palette, I found that a lot of the colors were really, really dark. They translated really dark on my eyes, and I wasn't picking it up as much as I thought I was, to be honest with you. So even though the quality was great, the consistency of the palette is great, I actually got a very broken palette the first time around, and then I got a replacement instead, so I was able to really see what the pigments were like, and it's a great palette. But it is one palette that I didn't really grab a ton, so when my friend told me that she really, really wanted it, but she felt like the price was outrageous, I decided to just gift it to her because I'm not using it much and she would really, really love it. So that's what I did. But this is my palette in number 5 position, which is Sunrise. So this is the midi palette like I talked about in my collection and the only middle-sized palette now in my collection. You can see the light is sort of flashing on the bottom there. So we've got Sunrise palette right there, super beautiful. This is the inside of Sunrise, and as you can see, it's a very beautiful palette. This is one where the price point is less than the bigger palettes and of course more than the minis. But as you can see, this is essentially like another spin on her very, very popular Sunset palette, which has more reds and oranges and yellows. This is one where she added some pinks and some purples with a little bit of some like, you know, sparkly pinks and stuff, which I think is really, really beautiful. It is one that I think the quality is not compromised, but it is one that still has a bit of a less price point for those of you that are much more conscious of that. The packaging too is really nice because now we're getting into the plastic packaging. I'm one that actually doesn't mind the other style, which I'll show you in a second. I like the plastic one too, but I do kind of prefer the other one for some reason. So both are sleek, but I don't know, I like the other one too. So this has some gorgeous shades I think work really well together as well. And these are shades I feel very comfortable to use. I do really, really love this palette all in all. I think it's a great buy. Now palette number 4, so number 4 position basically, which is halfway from the rest of the palettes, is this one. So this is the Natasha Denona Sunset palette. And this is the other packaging style I was telling you about. It's like a foamy plastic kind of thing. It's a little bit lighter in the hand versus the plastic. I think the complaint that people have with this is that it gets dirty around the rims a little bit easier. So that's why I think people would prefer the plastic. I like this one, I like the plastic, but I think this one I like a little bit more for some reason. And maybe it's just because this was one of the first palettes I got from her. So that's probably why. It's just got a bit of a nostalgic kind of connection to me. We're now getting into her full-size palettes. She does have a 28 pan, like I said, that's even bigger, but this is the biggest size that I currently own. And these are some beautiful shades too. She kind of makes Sunset a very approachable palette, which I like because if I was thinking of just oranges and yellows, across a palette with a bit of reds, that would be a little bit intimidating to me because I don't typically wear bold colors either. So we did talk about like darker colors. I'm like, like not always. Bold colors too are a little bit tougher. And I also think even tougher for a beginner versus an expert. So when she did this palette and kind of added some pinks, some pale pinks, some browns, some gold shimmer, I think she did a good job with making this a very well-rounded palette and a bit more approachable for someone that doesn't always want to wear bold colors either. Out of all my big palettes, this is the one that I reach for the least. Not to say I don't like it, but I do really, really love my other ones in line, like I'll show you afterwards. But these are also some beautiful shades. The consistency of the formula is fantastic, and this is also one of my favorites. Palette number 3 is one of my favorites, which I know is also one of your favorites too, because I hear this one a ton from you guys. And this is also one I would 100% recommend. Obviously, I'd recommend the rest of them for different reasons, but this is one that if you really want to splurge on an everyday palette, this I think is one that you could definitely get and be happy with. This is the Natasha Denona All Neutral Biba palette, and this is palette number 3 for my ranking. This is also the plastic packaging like I talked about, very similar to the midi size Sunrise palette, but this one I'm going to use 2 hands for just so that nothing happens to it. I'm a little bit worried it's going to fall out. So this is a beautiful neutral palette. As you can see, it has mattes, it has shimmers. I think the consistency of the mattes is one of the best. It has a very creamy kind of consistency on the brush. It blends out very well. I prefer to have my lids set for this one because this one is very pigmented, so it does help to have a smooth base. If you do not set your lids and you have any texture or wrinkling or anything like that, which I feel like a lot of us do, but I do find that this one might be just a touch tougher to work with if you don't have a base down, and that's just my personal opinion on that. I love the Smashbox 24-hour primer if you are wanting a beautiful eye primer that works well with this one, but this is a fantastic palette too. I do think this is work friendly, night friendly, transition between work to night friendly. I just love it, and it's definitely a palette that I have done a ton of looks with. I think the shades work really well together too. They just have like some slight variations in them, so there's a couple that are kind of close, as you can see, but I do think that they work really, really well together, and they're very approachable colors, which I think works for all skill levels, essentially. All right, now palette number 2 is this one, which you guys know I love. Love, love, love. I recommend this one a ton, so this is no surprise to you guys. Palette number 2 is Natasha Denona Gold. This is an amazing palette. I feel like I speak its praises a ton. This is how it looks reflected, and then it reflects back this way. So you can see that it's got a beautiful reflection to the packaging. I absolutely love this one. Fantastic. She has executed gold really, really well in this. I have yet to see a gold palette that is as good as this, honestly. So if you love gold, you will love this. If you love gold as much as Goldmember from Austin Powers, I guess. Anyways, such a weird movie. I don't know why I just thought of that. This is a gorgeous palette. The amount of different variations of gold that she has done, like she's done duochromes really well. There's a ton of shimmers in here, as you can see. I think the mattes are beautifully cohesive with this palette because they're gorgeous neutrals that are so easy to apply to the lid. Whenever I see a neutral like this or like this, I feel like I don't even have to be as careful because that's kind of what I'm saying. When I think about other palettes like Sunset with a bold color or Mini Gold that's like that really deep color, you can't just like go to town on your lid. I feel like you have to really try to make it look nice and not untidy or unkept. Like there's definitely a bit of a finesse to a color that will really show imperfection. Whereas these, I think like, for me, a neutral like that is so easy just to whip onto my eye, and I don't feel like I'm as careful with it looking perfect. Maybe because the shades are not far off from my skin tone or they're slightly darker, that could be it too. I just have an insane comfort level with those neutrals. So the only like scary shades in here are probably these blues, but I've actually worked with them a ton in the past and really been impressed with their performance. The golds in here definitely are what make the palette stand out, and I do love how this is also a way to wear gold in a way that's not always as flashy. So you can still wear shades with like the gold pop in the center, like even to work. I don't think it would be that flashy. Of course, if you add the blue, it might be a bit more bold, but I think that this palette overall, because of the price point, I think she did a really good job of like essentially making it wearable for as many occasions as possible. All right, the moment we've been waiting for, which is which palette is number 1. Now I'm gonna give you guys just a couple seconds to write in the comments what you think is my number 1 palette. I feel like if you've been a subscriber for a while, you probably know there's only one palette missing in my collection that I haven't talked about yet. So obviously it's going to be in number 1. But the number 1 palette from Natasha Denona that I love because of the quality, because of the consistency of the quality amongst all the shades, the shimmers, the mattes, how cohesive they are, and the amount of use I have put into a single palette from her is this one. This is the Natasha Denona Lila palette. This is one I will always recommend to you guys as a palette that I think if you love these colors, you should definitely buy as one of your first palettes. If you are someone that really, really loves neutrals, I would recommend Biba. If you are someone that loves pinks and purples, I'd recommend this one. I would say that gold is my second recommendation, but it is a palette that I think I would get after Lila or Biba, depending on your preference. This is Lila, and how beautiful is she? So if you love purple, you will love this one. I love purple and pink. It's literally one of my favorite shades to wear. I find it very easy to put looks together with purples, and it's just because it's one of my favorite colors. That's literally all it really is. Like, it's a preference thing, hands down, and how she put this palette together is absolutely gorgeous. I love how she's got some like lighter purples in here, some bold purple. She's got a really nice gold in there to kind of give it like a pop in the middle. This is just one I think is beautifully done. And it's definitely one of her original palettes too. Like, this has been out for quite some time. If you are thinking about this one or the mini Lila, I would 100% wait until you can afford the big palette, because mini Lila, in my opinion, is just not what Natasha Denona is capable of. And I even don't think it's worth even buying at the mini level, because I think a lot of you guys, if you think about buying a mini and you're like, well, it's cheaper in price, so I'm not going to expect the quality of a big palette. I still think that you should expect good quality because you're spending money. Like, regardless of how much it is, I think you should expect your eyeshadow to perform. And the mini Lila is, no, it's just not. It's very patchy, dry mattes compared to, you know, some of her other minis that I've worked with. This one I think is much more worth it in my opinion, but it is of course a steep price difference. So wait until you're able to pick up this one, because you really won't be disappointed with this. It's that good. What do you guys think of all of the Natasha Denona palettes that I ranked today? Let me know all of your thoughts. I hope you guys have a great day, and until my next one, take care. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.
But somewhere there's a light inside of us. It shows the way.